Okay, I want to explain uh, just exactly what happened in 2008. The Federal Reserve was created back about 100 years ago, and it's a central bank of America. It's it creates the monetary units that America uses. It Each time it creates one of these monetary units, what it does is it attaches debt to the monetary unit it creates. Uh, there's more, uh, the debt accumulates until the point where there's more debt outstanding than there are monetary units that were created. They never create enough monetary units to actually pay the outstanding interest. So if you try to pay off the debt, what'll happen is the economy implodes on itself. So there's only one way to keep this going, this type of system that they created in the first place. It requires ever present exponential expansion of the monetary system. And it was created in a way so that the monetary system would have to ever keep expanding with the world's economy. So this kind of system actually works pretty good if you've got a constantly expanding economy and a constantly expanding monetary base. What you need is an infinite world so that you can keep constantly expanding, expanding, expanding. It cannot handle a contraction. So this is what happened from around 1914 until 2008. The economy in the world and the industry kept growing and growing and ever expanding into new further places in the world, cutting down rainforests, creating new factories, constantly expanding the monetary base and expanding industry. But the world is not infinite. The world is finite. And so this constant expansion had to reach a certain point, a critical mass, where the actual infrastructure in the world, would start to shrink back or contract. And that's what happened. There was this was a major contraction that happened in 2008. Now, the way the system is set up, if a contraction happens, it causes a deflationary spiral, if you will. And the only way to get out of that deflationary spiral is to create an expansion of the monetary base. It's like a boom bust cycle. It's all right as long as the thing's constantly booming. So what happened in 2008 is they went through this contraction of the entire, not just the monetary base, but also industry and everything. The whole world contracted suddenly. So what they did is they simulated expansion through monetary expansion. And they've been simulating, and in the case of China, China added a lot to this effect uh, by actually expanding and creating ghost cities and expanding their infrastructure, just as if they had the original uh, uh, expansion that kept growing. When they hit this contraction, they simulated an expansion by building bridges to nowhere, by building ghost cities. And now they're through this Reaganomics type program that Trump is putting in, infrastructure program. They're going to start to do the same thing in the United States that China's done with the ghost cities and stuff. But you can only go so far with this, because how many bridges to nowhere do you need? And how much can the world actually, the system actually becomes more and more top heavy all the time with debt. It's a constantly expanding credit. And see, the opposite side of credit is debt. Credit is debt. So when the bank extends you credit, they write it down. Well, they don't actually write it, but they put it into their computer that they extend you to this credit. That credit is also a debt. Credit is debt. Credit is debt. And so what happened is they simulated an expansion by creating credit. It creates new money. But the more you create, the more pressure you put on that outside of that bubble by expanding it, the more pressure it wants to contract in the other direction. And the quicker it wants to go in the other direction, the more you expand it. And eventually it gets to the point where you can't stop it from moving in the other direction. So the further you stretch that bubble, the more pressure you put on it, the more it's going to implode the other way. So the expansion of the bubble is inflation. It's inflating. The contraction of the bubble is deflation. It's deflating. And so these two forces are at work fighting one another. The inflation is fighting the deflation. Now, the larger this economic expansion, which is actually credit creation, goes, the tighter the bubble becomes. And the tighter the bubble becomes, the faster it pops, and the less ability they have to stop this monetary contraction. And the less ability they have to stop the monetary contraction, the more effort they have to put in to try to stop the monetary contraction, the more money it takes. So in 2008, when they got the first contraction, they were able to stop it with several hundreds of billions and a lot of money. This time, it's going to take 10 times the amount of money to stop the contraction. As you put all this money into the system to try to stop the contraction, what you're going to create is eventually is a lost confidence in the monetary units. When this loss of confidence occurs, this is when you get your sudden, very sudden rush out of the monetary units. It's called a crack-up boom. They want to get into anything that they can get into that's going to be going in the opposite direction of the money. So if the money's going down in a spiral at 1 billion miles an hour, they want to get on the elevators going in the opposite direction. They don't want the elevators going down, which will be the money when this happens. They want the elevator that's going up. And it doesn't, regardless of what it is, it doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter if it's beans, potatoes, salt, sugar. All these things are real. The money's not real. The money's digital now. The money is like a fantasy. When you go into your bank and they put the computer screen this way, they don't let you see the computer screen, because that money that you have in your account is no more real than the money that's in World of Warcraft. They don't want you to know this. That money's not real. That money is digits on a computer screen. That money can cease to exist in the blink of an eye, or they can create as much of it as they want, or they can deplete as much of it as they want. They have total control over that money. The only money that's actually real is money that's in the physical world that you can actually see and tangible. So that's cash. What do they want to do with cash? They want to get rid of it. They want to get rid of it as fast as they can. They're working to get rid of cash. Cash has got to go. want a cashless society. And the reason why is they know that this bubble is getting tighter and tighter. The skin on this bubble is getting tighter and tighter. And the next time we get a contraction, it's going to happen so fast. They're not sure that they can rush in with enough money to reinflate that. And if they do have to rush in with enough money to reinflate that, what kind of inflation they're going to create and what kind of a situation on the other side. This whole thing, every quarter, every 3 months, is getting more and more critical. It's getting into a critical mass. And it's all got to do with the creation of debt, which is credit. Credit is debt, and debt is credit. And so we're in a vicious cycle here. It goes along, and if you look at the charts, it looks like a hockey stick. It goes along fairly level, and all of a sudden, just in the last few years, we get this vertical swoop where it's going straight up. Everything, all of it, every chart, it's going along level like this, and then you get to here, and it's got a vertical swoop, and they call that a hockey stick curve. It's exponential. And this is the pressure that's being put. And they knew when they started this system, they knew that it would eventually lead to this. Because the system is created with exponential growth in a finite world. The world's not exponential. And so this exponential growth was created that they set into the system is not possible. It's mathematically not possible. So eventually, and see, a lot of people, they get on Obama's case and they say, oh, he did a terrible job doing this and doing that. But actually, he did a good job at keeping this going because he did exactly what he needed to do to keep this party going for the years after 2008. He kept borrowing money. He's very good at borrowing money. And he borrowed the money that they needed to keep this bubble inflating and not let it deflate. Because if it deflated, it would have had to crash and the whole thing would have blown up and would have caused a catastrophe. 2008, they come awful close. They've kept this thing going by slowly inflating it. And just inflating it enough. They just did an excellent job of inflating it just enough and letting the deflationary pressures pull it in a little bit and then letting it inflate a little bit and then pulling in. It's kind of like riding the top of a wave. I've used that illustration before. They kept it going, almost like it's breathing. And they kept it going all these years from 2008 till now. But they have to constantly keep, not the contraction, but constantly keep a very slight expansion of the credit and debt. And it's getting tighter and tighter, the skin on the balloon. Now, Trump's going to come along. And yeah, I mean, he really means to try to stimulate the economy and try to get us out of this mess. He really wants to do a good job. He really has good intentions. But he's going to start to inflate it faster than they were. They were letting it go like this, like breathe. Inflate slightly, slowly. He's going to start to pump the money in real fast, and he's going to increase this skin on this bubble much faster than it was going before. So it's gonna go anyway. I mean, it doesn't matter what you do, this thing gonna blow because it's exponential in a finite system. And so the key to all of this is understanding that this game that they were playing with deflation and allowing the deflation to slow down the speed in which the system was expanding, they're reaching the end of this limit of what they can do with that now, and now it's going to start to expand exponentially faster, leading to a crack-up boom. And this crack-up boom, it all depends on what they do to try to get us out of it, how fast they can get us out of it, and how limited the damage from it is. And just exactly what it does. So um, you hope for you prepare for the worst, and you hope for the best in this sort of a situation. But the crack up boom is not going to be immediate. It's something you lead into kind of slow, and the first stages of it feel actually pretty good because money's starting to flow into the system again. See, the direction of money and the flow of money is actually changed now, and so this is what's going on, and this is what's happening in the system, and this is what's getting ready to happen. So if you're looking for a giant, enormous crash in the stock market, looking for the stock market to go down to 3,000 tomorrow morning, uh, probably say no. That's probably not what's going to happen. Uh, that's the stock market is oversold. Probably looking for a little bit of a correction in the short term. But this inflation that's coming, and this inflation of the monetary system, see, they can only go in two directions with this. The natural direction for it to go right now is for the whole thing to implode into a tremendous deflation, and for the stock market to go down to almost nothing. That's the natural way it should function. But they're not going to allow that to function. When it starts to go in, they're going to inflate it back up. And so the stock market could start to implode on itself, but they'll support it. Uh, they're going to. There's only two directions for the whole thing to move, and that's inward or outwards. And the bigger it gets, the more pressure is on the skin of it, and so the quicker these moves are. So in the markets, you get more turmoil, quicker moves up and down in the markets, and this is exactly what we're seeing as the tide starts to turn on the money. The flow of money starts to change directions. It's like a tidal river. The more waves you see, and these waves are flash crashes in the system. And what's causing these flash crashes is the and the volatility is the closer we're getting to the changing turn of this money, or the ebbing of the tide of the money, and the change in direction. So there you go for now.